everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far to talk about the things that matter. And the things that matter this month is horror, spookiness, and in this case, a little bit of comedy. If you think it's funny. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. But hey, listen, we have a brand new guest in the PodCavern, made from pumpkins themselves and just stacked pumpkin on pumpkin on pumpkin. They've been living next to a scarecrow as well. And I just have to ask, we have Gisela Peters. How is it to be a pumpkin scarecrow?
It's just your everyday standard sort of set of 7 mimic pumpkins put together into one giant human-shaped pumpkin. So I'm glad it is the time of year I can maybe recharge some of my pumpkinness because I'm getting low, but...
Yeah, I mean, like, you're really only popular one time a year.
It's true. So underrated.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks for you because being a scarecrow and all, a pumpkin scarecrow, that's a little bit better, but, you don't really get to move, so I'm happy to bring the PodCavern to you.
Well, thank you, Tongue. I really appreciate that. Especially with quarantine, you're not really going very many places. So,
that's true, eh? Mm-hmm. And like you spend all your time outdoors, and since everyone's indoors, you really don't have any friends this year.
It's true. I don't.
Oh no, it's okay. We'll be your friend. I'll be your friend, at least for the duration of the podcast, and then I have to go back inside because quarantine rules. I don't make up the rules here, Gisela. So
yeah, no, that's fair. I understand.
Gisela, for the people who don't know who you are a dear friend of mine, but you have never stepped foot in the PodCavern. So can you just introduce who you are and, other things that have been keeping you happy and sane during these dark times of COVID?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Gisela Peters. I basically, my only real claim to fame is I once met Jay Ingram from Discovery Channel. That's really about it. That was the most exciting thing for me as I would have been like 16 at the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
so it's been all downhill from there.
Just my heart went pitter patter. No, actually, I'm a writer and novelist, aspiring anyways. Did manage to get shortlisted for a CBC prize, which was fantastic a few years ago.
That's crazy. But yeah, that's awesome.
Not yet gotten anything published, so still working on that and excited to give podcasting a go. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no worries. If writing doesn't do it for you, then what other ways can you not make money is podcasting?
Very true. Very true.
Gisela, that's amazing. And what have you been doing in your spare time? Of course you probably have been writing, but is there anything else that keeps you just happy? It's pretty sad and dark times ahead of us, but we always try to keep it bright in the PodCavern.
Yeah, well, honestly, not sure if you'd consider this bright or not, but I've really been indulging in a sloth life. A whole lot of sleeping all the time, napping all day, sleeping all night, partying absolutely never, which has been remarkably rewarding, but simultaneously time doubly has no meaning whatsoever. Like, I think I was convinced up until I looked at my calendar earlier that we were still somewhere mid-September. So
I know it's such a big blur, isn't it? And it's funny because back in early days quarantine, I know the main advice was hey, you know what? Just forget about your health right now in terms of not mental health, but more if you got to eat a little bit more to feel better, if you got to sleep in a little bit more to feel better kind of thing, then do it. Because we live in strange times, you should do it. But it's oh no, this is happening for way longer than any of us anticipated. So it's kind of at what point am I slothing too hard now?
Indeed.
Yeah, it's strange because I feel the same. I want to be able to just be hey, you know what? I just want to do me because it's such crappy things going on that why can't I just do what I want? But it's gone a little too long and now I feel kind of guilty.
Yeah, it's true. There definitely comes a point where you've got to lay off the quarantine comfort food, I suppose.
Yeah, no more pogos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
No more lemon tarts or whatever floats your boat.
Yes, once a week, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe even that's too much, but I don't know. I still retract to like, no, we should still, be a little happy. Like comfort food,
Yeah,
still an okay thing. Maybe just not as much.
indeed.
Gisela, let's talk about the news of the week, pop culture news of the week. We do this every week on Talking Tongue, where I pull a bunch of IGN headlines and we try to just work our way through it and see what's exciting in the world of pop culture. And transparency is usually I get to spend like 10-15 minutes to compile these headlines ahead of time, but with dog training and all this nonsense, I had zero time to do that. So we are doing this live today, where I am just going on IGN site right now, and we'll see what we find. Also, today is Friday. We usually record on a Sunday. We might miss stuff from the weekend, and hey, that's okay. It's our Thanksgiving weekend. We get to enjoy it. So here we go. My first news story for you, Gisela, is there's a little bit of an article that says, here's why Netflix cancels shows so quickly. And you love Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And you like a lot of shows that have probably been canceled. Is this true as well?
Yes, it has. I still have not gotten over Firefly.
I mean, did Netflix cancel Firefly? I don't think so.
But just in general, that cancellation was...
I don't think you can. Yes. Yeah. I agree. I agree on Firefly, but I don't think we can pin that on Netflix.
No, we cannot.
Here's some notable ones in the past that have been canceled. We have Marco Polo, which was hugely hyped and then axed after 2 seasons. Oh, Bloodline, The Get Down, OA. Unless you're Stranger Things or I guess The Witcher and Umbrella Academy, then you're kind of effed, like Altered Carbon got canceled this year. I Am Not Okay With This, The Dark Crystal, which was hugely marketed and like very well received. And it's like, nope, axed. V-Wars, Messiah. Now they're announcing the final seasons of Ozark and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Dead to Me and The Crown. Like all these shows that have like big pedigrees are just out the window. And have you ever wondered why it was like that, I guess?
I honestly, I think that it's not uncommon for, like, I understand Netflix is not a cable network, but in a lot of ways it acts like a cable network. And it's not uncommon for shows to basically run their course. And I really respect when writers and showrunners kind of understand when it's better to end something on a high note rather than let it drag out. So I'm not always adverse to the canceling of a season. And sometimes you just kind of have to. Like with House of Cards, there isn't really an option otherwise.
Well, I guess they finished it, but it was like...
They had to wrap it up. They had to wrap it up quickly, basically.
I feel strange about... I wish Netflix would just tell them, I guess, is where I'm at. Like, I guess, like, you never know until a show hits, like, how popular it is and stuff like that. But it really sucks when you hear such great things about things like Altered Carbon, for example. I was told such amazing things about, like, hey, you should watch Altered Carbon. It's such a neat, cool show. And it's canceled and it never got to finish its story. And I'm like, well, why will I watch it now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's very unsatisfying to be told to watch a show that doesn't conclude.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that because, like I was saying, there is a time, like there's a correct time and place in which to cancel a show, like when you've wrapped up your story. But if you're just leaving it hanging, then it's almost like there's no rewatchability in it because what's the point if you don't know what the end's going to be? Why sink your time into it when you know you're never going to find out?
Exactly. So the quick 3 reasons that I'm just going to quickly read over here that Netflix cancels their show is the first is it's based on viewership versus cost of renewal review process, which determines whether the cost of producing another season of a show is proportionate to the number of viewers that the show receives. Makes complete sense. The other one's a really interesting one. So it's based on some data points here, viewership data points. Specifically, it looks at 2 data points within the first 7 days and the first 28 days of a show being available on the service. The first is starters or households who watch just 1 episode of a series. And the second data point is completers, people who finish an entire season. And the final metric is watchers, which is the total number of subscribers who watch a show. And then there's like a whole model it compares it to. And it's like, it feels it's very calculated if they will give it another go or not.
Yeah, that would make sense because considering how much money and time goes into the creation of every single one of these, like, you're not going to knock it out of the park every single time. And so I'm guessing that they're using the same strategy that I almost want to say a lot of startups use, like just move fast and break things, see what works, and then find out quickly, and then
abandon it if it doesn't.
Exactly.
Like here's the last part here is this is the interesting part is that every show of a season gets more expensive after every season, right? Like at season 2, even more expensive at season 3, and even more at season 4. Like there's a premium that goes up. And the other coin of it is if a show hasn't grown significantly in popularity over season 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, then it's unlikely that they will gain any new viewership, in which case they just axe it right there, which I find very interesting because you would think the initial fervor, though that audience would likely go back to it, but that's not enough. They want to see growth, not just like a plateau of viewership.
Yeah. I would.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It makes sense on a business standpoint. I just hate business when it comes to television.
Yeah,
and stuff.
business. It's not conducive to creativity. That's for sure because they're following their algorithms and the programmatics that they use to track viewership like you were describing earlier, and so it becomes a return on investment. So if the content you're making isn't making money, then capitalism, you're gonna axe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to a couple delayed movies, and I feel like this happens every single week. It's like, what's delayed this week? So, and things are moving and shuffling and all this other stuff. So, Batman is delayed to 2022. No Robert Pattinson Batman. The Matrix 4 moved up to 2021. Fast and the Furious got delayed again, which is now May 28th, 2021. And I think that's it. I think that's it for this week's delays. How does this make you? Jurassic Park Dominion also got moved an entire year. They filmed for like a hot second. I remember them touting about like how much money they spent on COVID testings and all this stuff. And in the last couple days, they said, a couple of our crew members got sick. It seems like they are okay now and they're testing negative now, but per guidelines, we have to shut down for 2 weeks. And it's like, oh my God, are you gonna have to do that for like, it makes complete sense, but it's like, holy shit, like film for 5 days, shut down for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like it just, it seems like a shit show.
Oh man, trying to produce something like that. Oh, it would be so difficult.
And I know you love Fast and the Furious. So does this make you sad to have to wait even longer for it?
It does. It does. Well, I will admit the franchise has never been the same since Paul Walker passed away. It's still near and dear to my heart. So I am a little disheartened to hear about that. And
do you want it to go to space? Because they've been talking about it and it sounds like it will happen. So is this an exciting idea to you?
I think that there's nowhere that Fast and Furious can't go. So I wouldn't mind seeing it at some point, but I hope to God, probably not anytime soon. Let's give it some more attempts at seriousness before we fully go off the deep end like that.
Yeah. I mean, I give it another movie, honestly. I would say after this movie, they're definitely going to space. And after that, they're going to go like either fight some aliens or do like a multiverse thing.
Oh my gosh.
Vin Diesel raises himself.
Well, that'd be one way to get some recurring cast back into the timeline, I would think.
Well, you can just be like, oh, no, Han's alive.
Yeah,
You could
Han's
just do
alive
that.
now.
You know what? We don't have to explain it. He's alive. He
It's fine.
survived.
We're just not going to question this. Well,
Yeah. How do you feel about, and I'm just literally just reading the headlines, so I don't know too much about this. How do you feel about megalodons?
just in general, like as species, or
Yeah, because the headline is megalodons are so massive because of cannibalism in the womb, literally, which I guess they eat inside their mother's womb and like eat apart like what's inside.
yeah. Well, frankly, nature's a bitch, and that is a thing that happens. Like animals will eat their siblings in the womb, so I suppose it's technically possible. But I don't think that would be the sole contributor, considering animals still do it now.
Now, how would you feel going head to head against a megalodon?
I would feel like my chances would be really not that great, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay. So there's still, it's not that great, but it's not futile. It sounds like.
It's not futile. You know what? I'll never say never, because
Yeah.
I think as this year's proven, anything is actually possible. But yeah, no, I'm not Jason Statham in The Meg. So
Yeah, neither am I. I actually never saw the movie The Meg. Did you see it?
a few too many times, yeah.
You've seen it many times? What the heck?
It was on Netflix during the early days of quarantine. It was that and Tiger King, just endlessly.
Wow. And how is it?
It's basically everything you'd expect out of a Jason Statham action vehicle.
Okay.
It's
amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, have you ever seen Skyscraper with
I
Dwayne "The Rock"
have.
Johnson? Yes,
I have seen it.
Imagine the skyscraper is actually a megalodon.
You know what? I would watch that because Skyscraper, it's a good B movie.
It's a good B movie, absolutely. And The Meg, actually, I'm excited for you to watch it. If when you do, you gotta let me know, because
Okay.
I love I won't even, no spoilers.
Okay. Fair enough. We know Dave Bautista, famously an up-and-coming actor. You know what? Fuck that. He is an actor. Like, he's been doing a ton of stuff since his wrestling days. Drax, for example, in Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's been in other stuff as well. He's been really trying to, and I think he succeeded in getting out of like wrestler fame. You know, like The Rock, when he was starting to act, and everyone's like, the fuck? The Rock is acting? And now he's literally the biggest action or movie star of all time right now. There's just an interesting thing here where Dave Bautista hid inhalers under wrestling rings to deal with his asthma. And I just find that fascinating because A, I never knew he had asthma. And B, I'm just like, that's such like a sneaky stealth thing to do while you're wrestling in front of a bunch of people. Like to just take a puff of your inhaler while you're wrestling. Oh, sounds insane.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, fortunately, I've never had asthma, but I can't even imagine trying to hide. Like, don't mind me, just under here. I'm just gonna take a puff of this. Don't mind.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking like people with anxiety and stuff like that need maybe like weed or something, or maybe something even more. Just like taking a puff of weed while you're wrestling someone.
That would be fantastic. You know what? I think that should be permitted, because I really can't imagine it giving you that much of a competitive edge, but it would probably really help your mental well-being.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I agree. A supernova explosion discovered from 2.5 million years ago. I guess it just blew up. I mean, like, no, that's not true. It from 2.5 million years ago, but it was just discovered. You are into this type of stuff, aren't you, Gisela? Like stars and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And what I find so fascinating about that is because you're right. It blew up like 235 million years ago or something like that. But it's almost 2.5 million years ago. But up until we discovered it, all we'd been seeing is a ghost. It's a ghost of a star, which I think is a kind of crazy way to look at it. But
oh my God, that is so nuts. It's so fucking far away from us.
It's like incomprehensibly large.
Yeah. A couple stone throws away, let's just say. A T-Rex fossil sells for $31.8 million. Would you ever buy something like that?
Oh, fuck yeah.
If you had $31.8 million?
If I had $31.8 million and okay, I would have to like channel my inner, I don't know, paleontologist or something and put it in a museum. But yeah, I would love to have something like maybe not for myself personally, because I mean, science. Donate it to somebody who can actually study it. But I would love to say that I owned one.
Yeah, and maybe you can sell it for even more. I mean, like, come on.
Oh, that's true. I'll be like, excuse me, the ROM. Do you need a T-Rex skull?
Okay, a couple more here. We have, let's see here. I'll skip that one. We have, how do you feel about the Sherlock Holmes movies, specifically the Robert Downey Jr. ones?
You know what? I actually really enjoyed them. Because I found they came out roughly around the same time as the BBC Sherlock was on, was it not?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I remember at the time thinking like, oh, what's all this Sherlock stuff that's happening? Mm-hmm. But I did actually really enjoy them. I think that they're fun, light comedy, I want to say. It's not exactly like Oscar nomination or anything.
Right,
But yeah, I loved it. It was fun.
They're fun. I mean, like, personally, I'm a Benny Cumby bitch. Like, I that's how I fell in love with that. And Martin Freeman, too. Like, I thought Sherlock, the BBC show, was like mind-bendingly good. Like, I just thought it was so well written for the first two seasons. And even the other stuff was really good too. It's just the first two seasons I was obsessed with. I would tell everybody about the show and I would watch it with them too. Like, just be like, you gotta watch a show. And I'd be like, I was in university, so I was like still like at 2 a.m. I'm like, hey, you never heard of Sherlock? Let's watch it now. Like the worst time when I'm drunk and high with my friends to start like an hour and a half long show.
It's totally reasonable.
Yeah, but I'd be interested because like in comparison, I didn't like it as much, but in a vacuum, I think they're still pretty fun.
Yeah, that's something that I've actually really like about Sherlock Holmes and a lot of adaptations of like public domain stuff, because there's so many different ways of being able to tell that story. So you can take it in that ridiculous, like, I want to call him daddy a bit, Benedict Cumberbatch role in BBC Sherlock. But then also simultaneously, like the Robert Downey Jr., like it's the same character, but just looking at different aspects or I guess things that the writers wanted to look at. Like they wanted a vehicle for something fun, I'm guessing, in the Robert Downey film. Whereas with BBC Sherlock, it was, I would say, like a more serious sort of modern adaptation.
Yeah, and I would say it's more like character focused in the way that you are learning about the inherent flaws of these characters, and they dive deep into like how Sherlock is a sociopath, basically. Like he is, you really get to dive into that, and he's like a big asshole, which I guess is always like a Sherlock thing, is being an asshole, because Robert Downey Jr. one is definitely that too. But he also, it's logical too. Like they do their best to explain things in the BBC show that you're like, oh, okay. Whereas the movie version, the Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law one, it always felt like magic almost. Like he doesn't really explain his process very well. He just kind of knew it, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right. And I think that's part of that, I think, is down to like just how much time someone has to tell a story. Like with the Robert Downey Jr. ones, you've got between
2 hours?
2 hours to tell a whole story. Whereas, season 1 of BBC Sherlock, it was
hour and a half per
episode, and it was 3 episodes. So almost 5 hours roughly. So
that's true. That is very true. Although, like, I would say each episode of Sherlock is basically a movie in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on to 2 more stories here. I'm curious. We don't have to spend too long on this because I don't actually know too much about it, but it looks awesome. Amazon is doing an animated TV series of Robert Kirkman's Invincible. Have you ever watched that or read that before?
I actually have not. No.
Okay, I don't know too much about it, so we can basically gloss over this really quickly. But the description of the series is Invincible is an adult animated superhero show that revolves around 17-year-old Mark Grayson, which is cast by Steven Yeun, who's just like every other guy his age, except that his father is the most powerful superhero on the planet, Omni-Man, who's voiced by J.K. Simmons. But as Mark develops powers of his own, he discovers that his father's legacy may not be as heroic as it seems. And I watched the trailer. It looks amazing. It looks bloody as hell as well because it's Robert Kirkman. I don't know. It has a really cool style to it. Let's see who else is in this. Apparently Sandra Oh is in this. Seth Rogen, Gillian Jacobs, Andrew Rannells, Zazie Beetz, Mark Hamill, Walton Goggins, Jason Mantzoukas, Mae Whitman. The list goes on. Holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe something to keep an eye on because I know you like. Do you like Robert Kirkman stuff? Actually, I'm not sure if that's true.
I haven't read a lot of it, so I can't really say for sure. But
okay. Well, just so I'm not a liar, you do like Robert Kirkman stuff.
Okay.
I'm just gonna attach that to your personality.
All right. Thank you.
I mean, I read Walking Dead and that's it, and I couldn't even finish it all. I mean, I really liked it, but
yeah, I think I read up to issue. 76 or something like that. Okay, yeah, Robert, fantastic. Now that I know who you're talking about, because I didn't initially attach the name of the writer. Yes, I agree.
Okay, so I'm not a liar. Great, no. That's good. My last story for you is Soul, the Disney animated Pixar movie. It is the next one that, after Onward. Sorry, I was going to say Upward. Onward. That's releasing this holiday season. The interesting part of this is that Mulan was an experiment, a grand experiment for Disney Plus, where they released like a premium access where you pay $30 and you get to own it forever, and it'll come to Disney Plus in December, something like that. Mm-hmm. Now, Soul looks like it's coming straight to Disney Plus, and there doesn't seem to be, at least in the moment of this recording, to be like a premium access to it. It looks like it's just, if you have Disney Plus, you get to just watch it. How do you feel about, I mean, of course you'll feel good about like, hey, of course, like if it's free, great. But how do you feel like what that means about how successful the premium access model was for that experiment with Mulan?
Well, clearly it wasn't very successful if they're not going to be doing it. And as someone who subscribed to Disney Plus, basically day one, I didn't like the feeling that I needed to pay even more to have access to one film, and it would have cost more or less the same as, going to the theater. It didn't feel like an equitable sort of value proposition.
Sure.
I just didn't bother, honestly. Like, I knew it was going to be, like, Mulan's going to be coming in December to Disney Plus. So as far as I'm concerned, I can just wait. And I'm guessing I'm not the only person who maybe thought that way, if they're just going to be bringing it directly to the normal streaming service rather than having a premium service.
It's interesting to me because I thought it did well, and it sounded like it made several $1 million, which, it always sounds like a lot of money, but for big corporations, they're like several $1 million. Where's the billions of dollars or something? Like, we need money to wipe our ass with. This isn't that type of money. What is this? So, and I wonder like how much of a headache it was building out that, paywall, or even just the audience reaction to that kind of stuff. It draws a lot of questions that I don't have answers to, but I think it's really fascinating to see, because even Amazon has their own like channel service. Not that you buy movies in the same way, but it's like they hide stuff behind different channels where you pay another $5 to be subscribed to whatever in order to view movies on Prime Video. And I would never pay for anything like that either. So I don't know.
To be honest, I have actually paid for Amazon channels.
Yes, tell me more about that, because I'm very curious.
And the big reason for me is just because like of the sheer quantity of content on it. And that being said, the like 1 week or 2 week or 1 month, whatever free trial thing, not going to lie, often I'll subscribe, watch a series, and then forget to unsubscribe. So I'll get dinged for another month. But
they always count on that.
They always do. But I do like, Now, I'm not necessarily a big fan of Amazon, and I think any tech company with the right build, with the right software could do this. But I like having just that sheer quantity of sort of aggregated content, like,
Yep.
because it's stuff from all over the world, right? And I would rather sign into one place and kind of have access to so much content rather than have to go to six
Like a
different
bunch of
streaming
different, yeah.
sites. Yeah.
I agree with you, and it's one of those cases where, like, again, like, well, I feel weird about always talking about Amazon because our affiliate links with Amazon, and I watch a lot of videos on Prime Video, but I actually don't like Amazon because
Yep.
Jeff Bezos is a dirtbag, but at the same time, it's so fucking convenient, and I hate that. It's just a necessary evil in my life, and I despise that I have to support it. And unfortunately, the way I live my lifestyle, I really can't live without it. I mean, Prime Video, I probably can, but I mean, just like the shipping, like the whole like package of doing Prime Video, your shipping with Amazon, and a bunch of other stuff together is such a huge value proposition.
It's actually really important to a lot of communities too. Like I was actually reading about how in Iqaluit, it's like the only northern community that has Amazon Prime, and it makes such a huge difference for them being able to buy on Amazon because of the cost of just like essentials up in the north.
Yeah, that's so interesting. All right, no more talk about Amazon because I feel like a corporate
Over
shill.
it.
But let's talk about the movie, the spooky movie of the week, because of course we are doing horror-themed movies throughout the month for Talking Tongue. Gisela, you chose this movie. Do you want to explain what this movie is and why you chose it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Slaughterhouse 5.
There's something in the woods.
What the devil? That hole is a gateway, and it leads straight down to hell.
It's a horror comedy romp, basically, through a British private school or public school, I guess, over there. And I chose it because I love the cast. So we've got Simon Pegg and Martin Sheen, Nick Frost, Margot Robbie's in it, and Asa Butterfield, who I think is totally fun.
Yeah. Yep.
So I chose it, honestly, based on the cast.
Have you seen this movie before?
Never,
Curious?
actually. I watched it for the first time about a couple hours ago.
I'm looking at the DVD picture of Slaughterhouse Rulez on just Google Images here, and Margot Robbie's name is not even on here, which I find very telling of perhaps the quality of the movie in some senses.
It was a small role, I will say that.
Yeah, for sure. But even like if Meryl Streep makes an appearance in a movie, she's always like, put my name there. Put my name there right now. Margot Robbie's like, well, she's in it, but she's not really in it at the same time, I guess.
Basically a cameo, really.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I guess we'll start off here with, did you like the movie?
I wanted to like it a lot more than I actually did like it. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the premise. Like, I thought the setup was fantastic, and I thought the cast did a great job. And I'm a sucker for any kind of horror comedy, especially one that really leans into being self-aware, a little bit like this one did. But
yeah. There's something, the ingredients were there. I just feel like they didn't mix it up completely right to make it fully work. The premise of the movie, for those of you who don't know, and of course we're going to get into spoilers, which I think it's fine spoiling this movie. I don't think it will impact your ability to enjoy or not enjoy this movie. But the premise is the students and faculty members of a refined British boarding school are forced to fight a horde of evil entities that emerge from a nearby fracking site. And you're right, it has such a killer cast in here. Like I like these actors, especially when you have actors like Michael Sheen and Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. You're like, okay, this is gonna get fucking wild. And it kind of does. But I think it drags its feet too much in the beginning. And to me, my biggest complaint about the movie is that you don't actually get to dive into that horror element of the movie until I looked at the clock like an hour into the movie. Like that's when things start to actually pick up. And we're talking about a movie that's an hour and 40 minutes long. So really only have 40 minutes of what I would deem like the good part.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to some sort of like eldritch horror exploration in this, British public school, but really it spent a lot of time with its setup, but simultaneously didn't really ask me to care very deeply about too many of the characters. So
yeah, that's interesting, right? Like, I mean, the Slaughterhouse, like they spend a lot of times with the setup of what the school is, Slaughterhouse, and like already it's like, oh, it has a spooky name, it has such a horrible name, like I can't wait to see how this school operates. And you do get to learn that, but it's not, I guess like it's not very important on how the school is run to the overall plot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because they introduce all of this like spooky history for the school, but then the actual threat comes from like an external recent threat. So
Yeah.
they're priming us to be like scared of, I was almost expecting some sort of like Shoggoth creatures from beyond coming up through this whole kind of like from hell kind of thing. And
Yeah.
but while that's kind of what happened, the reasoning for it became unrelated to all of the earlier setup they did, which made the earlier setup feel like really wasted time.
Yes, that's exactly how I would equate that too as well. Cause I was just like, because once they got into the like final 40 minutes, which I thought was like pretty fun, like it was pretty good. Like I wish the whole movie was kind of like that. Just like these kids teaming up, trying to fight the evil entities. You have Simon Pegg freaking out, Nick Frost being just ridiculous, and Michael Sheen just being very dramatic. Like those stuff, that's the stuff that I like about these types of movies. But all the other stuff is like, okay, here are the rules of Slaughterhouse Rulez. And I'm like, well, I mean, I guess you're kind of like Harry Potter-esque, they have houses and stuff, but it just doesn't matter, I guess.
It's like this movie is an hour and 43 minutes long. We do not have time to waste on the entire class struggle of this institution. Like,
I also don't feel like I completely learned the differences between the houses unless it's like a very base level stuff,
It didn't even matter, really. Like,
Yeah.
why did we need to know? Why did we spend time learning about that within the context of like moving this plot forward, kind of?
Yeah. Can you talk about the things that you really did like about the movie? Any moments in the movie that you like really gravitated towards?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the character design, like the creature design in it. The creatures were, it seemed like they had a pretty fun mix of like, they had some decent practical effects in there, which I always respect.
Right.
So I did enjoy that. And
They're like the lizardy kind of creatures that look like alien, but not quite.
Basically, I'm calling them Shoggoths based on the whole like Lovecraftian, the Cthulhu mythos, because it's kind of what I thought they were going for here. But they didn't really lean too much into the weird horror of it. But what I did enjoy, though, was I thought Nick Frost was absolutely hilarious as Woody, and just insane and simultaneously kind of endearingly irritable.
Yeah, definitely.
which was kind of fun. And I actually really enjoyed the ridiculous nicknames that everybody had in this film. I don't know if that's maybe a British public school thing, or
which nicknames really
like
jumped out at you?
so we had, or just like people's names, like Clemsy and Wotton and Bat.
Willoughby. Yeah.
Willoughby. Well, that sounds pretty like an Austen character, but
okay, yeah. Yeah, the Bat is
The
Michael
Bat.
Sheen's.
Yeah, Michael Sheen's character.
Clegg, who's
Basically Draco Malfoy in this
yeah.
film.
Let's talk about Clegg, who is the I guess the foil of the movie. He's kind of a huge asshole. He's like the houses are set up in such a way that he is like, you have to become a god, a house god, to be basically like a glorified hall monitor.
Yeah,
of
it sounds
sorts.
like well, they had prefects in the like. It sounds like a head boy or like house captain type of
Yeah.
role, but
And all of like the ways to become a god are different among houses. It sounds like there's one at the very end where they basically have a giant orgy while the person
effectively.
getting and while the person getting promoted needs to get flayed or whipped over and over again. Very strange stuff. But Clegg, how did you feel about him being kind of like the foil of the movie?
I was hoping to see a bit more depth in the character in the sense of they set him up immediately as kind of this, as the antagonist, and you expect that. But I didn't expect him to remain the antagonist and kind of go off the deep end even more throughout the film and towards the end of the film. Because I felt like we had enough antagonists, like we had enough enemies and like external threats in the movie. I thought it would have been a better story if he didn't just effectively go off the rails at the end there. But
Right. Yeah.
but I did like that he existed in the film as a character, and he did also somewhat look slightly kind of Laurent Draco Malfoy.
Yeah, he definitely fits that. I mean, maybe it's the blonde hair.
Yeah, he's extremely pale.
Yeah, I was thinking that, like, with his character, because they brought him back a few times to be the foil, I'm like, okay, if they're going to do this, he really has to be the ultimate bad guy in all of this, in the way that, like, even after they defeat the threat at the end, I would have expected him to come back one last time kind of thing to confront our heroes and still fail, but also just still be a dick kind of thing. But I don't know, something about his imposing force or personality towards him like kind of stopped clicking as the movie went on, because I'm like, okay, you don't matter in this movie. I really am more curious about the monsters of the movie.
There definitely came a point with him where I was like, do you even go here? There was it's his character stopped contributing to the plot, really. So
Right,
it's
exactly.
like there was elements of, why do I still care? Like, why, as somebody who's like trying to critically watch this film / enjoy it, why am I supposed to care about this guy?
Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't even have like he is house boy, or I guess house god, but he also, like when that type of role, you usually think he has like a posse rolling around with him or something, but he doesn't. He's just on his own and kind of bullying people. Full-time bully, really. Just goes around telling people what to do and feathering people. Kind of a dick.
Expected, but also that kind of
Yes. Okay. Other moments that really jumped out at you.
Well, I really thought that the end scene where they basically blow up the school, that felt intensely cathartic to me, because it's like that school had wronged all of those characters in one way or another, and they just got to sit there and enjoy and watch it blow up. So
yeah, did I miss? I feel like I might have missed this because I watched this yesterday, mind you. but did they mention why it blew up so quick, or is it just fracking in general?
I think I really think that the overall moral of this movie is that fracking is bad.
Yeah.
And that really is the only explanation given.
And a single flame will light the entire thing up.
Yeah, basically. I suppose enough methane will pool and explode your entire, scholarly institution. So...
All right. Okay. Fair enough. I also like the cheesy walk at the end. Basically walking away from a small explosion. Well, I guess it's a big explosion, but it looks small in the distance because they've walked pretty far ahead while it's happening. Yeah. And Simon Pegg, he let's talk more about him, because he was one of the reasons why I was like, okay, yeah, this is Simon Pegg's in this, and he kind of like, this is kind of his wheelhouse in terms of movies in a lot of ways, with his past pedigree. So I'm wondering how you felt about his role in the movie.
Well, to be honest, I don't think it was his best work, but I did enjoy his role, and I thought he was hilarious, but I didn't really. There was some elements in his role that I didn't really understand why they were bringing it up. Like, I felt I was excited to see Margot Robbie in the film, but I also didn't really understand why she was even in it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
think
definitely.
it's sorry, I was just thinking like to me like I was trying to make sense of it and it just really seems like with his character in particular they really just want to make him be more pathetic as the movie goes on, right?
That's what it genuinely felt like, especially with his relationship with Aubrey. I guess it felt like the whole movie was spending a lot of time almost bullying him as a character, and that's not something I really enjoyed, to be honest.
Right.
It didn't really feel like he was given too much of a chance to um, prove his worth, I suppose. Or
Oh yeah, he never even gets
yeah, he doesn't.
he just it ends in a sad note where he does survive but everyone left him.
Yeah, it felt really. I'm not going to say trite, but it certainly felt like there wasn't a whole lot of intentionality to his role. And I don't
Hmm.
know, like why. I didn't really fully understand what he was trying to get at.
Yeah, I wish he contributed more to the kids' plans. I guess like I know on a piece of paper, it's like, oh, he helped them escape because he was decoy in some sense. I mean, like unintentional decoy. It also seems like, but he was decoy. But yeah, other than that, he's basically just kind of there. Although, like, I like Simon Pegg. Every time he was on screen, I'm like, okay, I want to see more. But they just kept hammering home like how much he wants to stay with his wife and she just is constantly distracted about other stuff. So yeah, I don't know. That side plot never worked for me.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't really. I don't think it really contributed anything to the story, and there wasn't. There wasn't really any sort of positivity about it either. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What did you think about the dialogue in the movie? Like, there's a lot of f bombs, which is fine by me. But and you know, it is a comedy as well. It's a horror comedy, and it doesn't really start getting funny to me until later in the movie. I think like it's always kind of light and made me smile a lot, but I never had like huge chuckles. And I did laugh at one line, which is like, "We are the square root of fucked." I don't know. That's just really funny to me. But what did you feel about the dialogue and the writing in the movie?
No, I have to agree with you with that. It didn't. I didn't really have any moments of like sheer mirth or anything. Like I
Sure.
didn't. I didn't ruffle around at all. There was. I did like the delivery. A lot of the lines. I thought Asa Butterfield was pretty good in his role as Willoughby, and he was actually pretty funny in a lot of ways. But I wasn't really sold on much of the cast's comedic
Like,
timing, I guess.
right.
Like,
Okay.
yeah, it
Yeah, that's
it was definitely not as much comedy as I expected in my horror comedy, or as much horror actually as I expected in my horror
that
comedy.
you know maybe that's a very perfect summation of this is like it's a horror comedy but it doesn't do enough of either.
Yeah, it's watered down, that's for sure. I feel like it maybe could have spent a little more time in editing or something like that to tighten up the story a bit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, how about let's see here. Let's see. What do we want to talk about? Michael Sheen. We never really talked about like we kind of hit the other big actors. How did you feel they dealt with his character? You know, he is the headmaster essentially or the bat and he has a relationship with a fracking company. And yeah, I thought he had some fun moments of just like, oh, fracking, like it's fine, it's fine. You mean I would I really like the idea of like the headmaster being like, no, no, it's cool. I like money.
Yeah,
Nothing's wrong.
this is totally normal for my headmaster to be receiving these champagne baskets. Totally reasonable.
Yeah.
I think actually his character was a really good example of like how they set up that spooky background but didn't actually deliver too much on it. Because they have him as a villain because he's in with the fracking company, but yet simultaneously they've got that like creepy portrait with like the exact same looking kind of dog, and they make you think almost, or at least I got the sense like they were playing it as sort of being a, like a more spooky sort of tale.
Right.
But
Yeah.
surprise, the bad guys fracking company, which maybe we should have expected all along.
Exactly. It's funny to me. You're right. Like his character is evil, but it's not like the prime evil, I guess. Like what's his face? Palpatine. He is not Palpatine.
No.
He's barely Darth Vader, or he's barely anybody really. Maybe he's Tarkum. I don't know.
I don't know. Grievous.
Yeah, sure. And we have like someone named Matron, which I had to look up their name. It was the kind of creepier older woman who had like the like creepy face going on, right? Like she kind of like always looked kind of off, and you're like, oh, what is she gonna do to like set off everything as well? But very quickly when shit hits the fan, she dies. And I'm like, oh man, like I don't know why these characters matter. Like who's the bad guy? Tell me now. Like I don't know. It was a very frustrating moment because like I just didn't know what to really pay attention to in the movie, I guess, at some moments.
And with the matron, I didn't find it very clear at the beginning at all if she was supposed to be like a student or if she like what kind of her role was.
I still don't know.
Seemed to be around.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I just feel like every time they needed like a somewhat ominous moment, they're like, cut to the matron.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And it's kind of sad actually, because that implies that just like, just being old is scary, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like,
guess.
What are you trying to imply here with this?
Yeah. Before we wrap up here, I want to talk about like the ensemble at the very end. We have, the Don Wallace, Clemsy, Willoughby. We have like Wooten and Kay. Like there's like a team of like kids, I guess, that get together, and there's a light love story in the middle there, I guess, with the two main characters, the female and the male lead, who it's barely a thing, I guess. Mm-hmm. More that he wants to get with somebody and then finds out that the person that he thought was her boyfriend was actually her brother. Ooh, like what a twist, I guess. How did you feel about like that team up at the very end? Did you feel like everyone pulled their weight, or was it like whatever?
I feel like everyone pulled their weight within the framework of the story, but as kind of like a tangent there, that sort of like love or light romance subplot, I thought was kind of a waste. Like I always do enjoy a good romance in my horror comedies.
Sure, yeah.
But we weren't given any good reason as to why the main character even wanted to get with her, other than she was popular and
pretty and blonde.
And it just, there isn't like a whole lot of character development there with that. So
yeah, it was very shallow, I guess, which is fine in a horror comedy. Like I expect a little bit of that, to be honest, but it was just like, I don't know, like I just didn't have to be there, I guess. Like
they didn't have that much chemistry, I thought. So that probably would
that helps
to it too.
Right. I don't even know where either of those actors are from. Like it feels like Asa Butterfield was like the more well-known actor to me.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of any of them before. I don't think I've seen
I'm looking right now. Apparently this guy is going to be in F9, so maybe he is an up-and-comer there. So there you go. Oh, he's in Peaky Blinders as well. So I guess I've never seen the show, but it had 5 seasons, so maybe it's pretty big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's actually...
Oh, yeah. Okay. He looks like to be one of the main characters in Peaky Blinders, so there you go. With Cillian Murphy, so there you go. All right. I don't have anything else to say about this movie unless you do. What else do you want to...
You know what? I really don't. It felt like a pretty watered down kind of horror comedy. But I'm glad to have watched it. Sure. And checked it out. But I definitely...
You know what? Like part of watching a bunch of scary horror movies during it doesn't even have to be scary. Like horror comedy movies in the month of Halloween is always, there's a lot of bad ones, let's just say. And I kind of expect it when I watch these types of movies, and it's fine. I don't mind doing it in the month of Halloween. I think it's kind of like watching bad Christmas movies. It's just kind of part of the season.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely part of the season.
Yeah. Will I watch this again? Probably not. Maybe I'll throw it in the background if I really needed a movie to watch in the background. But there's much better horror comedies out there and horror movies.
I definitely agree with you on that.
And with that said, Gisela, can you rate this movie for me?
I feel like this movie is going to receive, let's see, 2.7 school ties, because that entire joke was ridiculous. I should clarify, out of 10. It was really not fantastic.
Wow. Okay. 2.7 out of 10. You couldn't even give it the 3, which
it didn't quite,
very telling.
It didn't quite make it all the way to being a third good. So
I think this really speaks to you, Gisela, as a person, because you're such a polite person. And when we were talking about the movie, I knew it felt to me you weren't thrilled about the movie. I would say 5 out of 10, but 2.7 ties out of 10. That's a low ranking. So there you go, people. All right, people, we are done. The show Talking Tongue is wrapping up. We are putting away the pumpkins and putting away the candy for now until next week. But before we go, Gisela has to plug something. Gisela, do you have anything to plug? Any creative stuff going on?
Well, I don't have any creative stuff going on, but I would like to plug an actually good horror comedy that I just noticed was on Crave, which I actually would have selected otherwise, called Extraordinary. It's set in Ireland. It was played at Nightlight Festival at Apollo Cinema last year. Definitely recommend checking that one out if you enjoy a good horror comedy.
All right. And I also want to plug, although I haven't seen it yet, but I hear it's actually pretty good, Vampires versus the Bronx, which is directed by Oz Rodriguez. And it's an hour and 25 minutes. It's a comedy horror. It's on Netflix. So I've heard really good things about it. So maybe we should both check that out, Gisela.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a ton of fun.
Vampires, the Bronx. What else do you need?
Nope, that's it. That's all I need.
That's all I need to. All right, everyone. So that's it for today's episode of Talking Tongue. Ooh, the horror of Slaughterhouse Rulez. I already forgot the name of the movie because it's so forgettable. So you can find the rest of the shows at www.podcavern.com. We're going to do a whole month of spooky shit. So stay tuned. And with that, I guess we're going to go back to playing Halloween Animal Crossing, Gisela. And do you have, let's see, I didn't prime you for this, but do you have a famous catchphrase? Anything at all that you want to sign the people off with?
Oh, yes.
That's perfect. All right, everyone. Bye. That's Gisela and her spooky voice.